Have you ever met someone and felt like life had been quietly preparing you for that moment? Not because everything made sense immediately, but because something deep inside you whispered, "This person matters." Sometimes destiny doesn't knock loudly. Sometimes it arrives disguised as pain, as loss, as disappointment, as a random encounter on an ordinary day. And by the time you realize what's happening, your life is already changing. Tonight's story is about two people who were broken in different ways. A man who stopped believing in love after betrayal shattered his heart. And a woman who built walls so high that nobody could reach the parts of her still hurting. Both had promised themselves the same thing. Never again. Never again would they trust so easily. Never again would they open their hearts. Never again would they allow love to make them vulnerable. But destiny had other plans. What happens when life keeps bringing two wounded souls together? What happens when every attempt to walk away somehow leads them back to each other? And what if the person you're trying so hard to avoid is the very person meant to heal parts of you that you thought were dead forever? This story will challenge how you see love, pain, healing, and timing. Because sometimes, love doesn't come when you want it. It comes when you need it most. Before we begin, if you believe that some people are destined to meet for a reason, go ahead and comment below. I believe in destiny. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson, and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the end of this one. Because this story proves one powerful truth. What is meant for you will find you. No matter how long it takes, no matter how far you run, no matter how broken you think you are. Now, let's begin. Chicago. The city moved fast, but Ethan Parker felt like his life had been standing still for years. At 36, Ethan had everything people said a man should want. A stable career, a beautiful condo downtown, money in the bank, respect in his field. From the outside, he looked successful. But success had become a strange kind of prison. Every morning looked the same. Every meeting felt the same. Every conversation felt rehearsed. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Somewhere along the way, life had stopped feeling alive. That Monday morning felt no different. Rain tapped against the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, while Ethan stared blankly at his laptop screen. Numbers, emails, deadlines, none of it mattered. His phone buzzed. It was his mother. Ethan ignored the first call. Then came a text. "Call me when you can." He sighed and rubbed his temple. A voice interrupted. "Rough morning?" Ethan looked up. His colleague Marcus stood at the door, holding coffee. Ethan gave a weak smile. "When isn't it?" Marcus entered. "You need a vacation." "I'm fine." Marcus laughed. "You always say that." Ethan leaned back, because it was easier. Easier than explaining why he felt exhausted, even after sleeping 8 hours. Easier than admitting something inside him felt empty. Marcus sat down. "You still thinking about her?" Ethan's expression hardened. "No." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That means yes. Her, Claire, the woman Ethan nearly married. The woman who taught him something painful. Love could disappear overnight. 3 years ago, Ethan had trusted completely. He gave everything. His time, his loyalty, his heart. Then, one random Thursday evening, he discovered Claire had been seeing someone else. Just like that. No warning, no honesty, just betrayal. Since then, Ethan changed. He still dated occasionally, but he never allowed anyone close enough to matter. Never again. Love had become a risk he wasn't willing to take. Across the city, Zariah Bennett stood in front of her classroom arranging papers. The noise of students slowly filled the hallway. Unlike Ethan's world of silence and spreadsheets, Zariah's world was full of sound. Voices. Questions. Laughter. She taught 7th grade English at a public middle school. To most people, she looked warm and full of life. And she was. Mostly. But even bright people carry shadows. At 32, Zariah had learned how to smile through disappointment. Her best friend often said she gave too much of herself to others. Maybe that was true. She cared deeply, loved deeply, showed up fully, and somehow that had often left her drained. Her last relationship ended a year ago, not because of betrayal, because of emotional neglect. Malik wasn't cruel. He simply stopped trying, stopped listening, stopped showing up, stopped choosing her. Being lonely while in a relationship hurt more than being single ever could. That relationship changed her. Now, she was careful, more guarded, less willing to believe words without actions. Her best friend Nia walked into the classroom. "You look tired." Zariah smiled. "Good morning to you too." Nia folded her arms. No, seriously. You okay? Zariah exhaled. Just tired. Nia narrowed her eyes. You've been saying that a lot lately. Zariah paused. Because Nia wasn't wrong. Lately, exhaustion felt heavier than physical tiredness. It was emotional. Like carrying invisible weight. Like trying to stay hopeful in a world that kept testing her softness. Nia softened. You deserve something good, Z. Zariah smiled sadly. Maybe? Nia shook her head. Not maybe, definitely. Zariah looked away. Hope was dangerous. It made disappointment hurt more. By evening, rain still covered Chicago. Traffic crawled. Ethan finally left work later than usual. His mind felt crowded. His mother's missed call. Work stress. The constant emptiness. He needed air. Instead of going home, he pulled into a small neighborhood bookstore he hadn't visited in years. Something about it felt familiar. Quiet. Warm. Still. He entered. The smell of books instantly hit him. For the first time all day, something inside him relaxed. Then it happened. He turned a corner too quickly and slammed straight into someone. Books fell everywhere. Oh my God. Sorry. A woman's voice. Ethan looked down. Books scattered across the floor. And standing in front of him was a woman with deep brown skin, expressive eyes, and a stunned expression. Beautiful. Very beautiful. She crouched quickly. I'm so sorry. Ethan snapped back to reality. No, that was my fault. Both reached for the same book. Their hands touched. A small pause. A strange moment. Something shifted. Not dramatic. Not magical. Just noticeable. Both pulled back slightly, then laughed awkwardly. I'm Ethan. The words left before he could stop them. The woman blinked, then smiled. A real smile. Warm. Natural. Unexpected. Zariah. And neither of them knew it yet. But destiny had just made its first move. For a brief moment, neither Ethan nor Zariah moved. Rain tapped softly against the bookstore windows, creating a gentle rhythm in the background. The kind of moment that seemed ordinary, and yet strangely significant. Ethan cleared his throat first. Sorry again. Zariah gave a small smile. I think we've both apologized enough. That made him laugh. A real laugh. Unexpected. It had been a while since something felt this light. They both continued gathering the fallen books. Ethan noticed the titles. Teaching Literature. Emotional Intelligence. Child Development. He looked at her. You're a teacher? Zariah stood up with the books in her arms. 7th grade English. Ethan nodded. That explains the patience. She raised an eyebrow. With? You didn't yell at me for almost knocking you over. Her smile widened. I save my yelling for middle school chaos. Something about her energy felt grounding. Warm, without trying. Confident, without arrogance. Ethan found himself unusually present. Not distracted. Not guarded. Present. That felt unfamiliar. Zariah noticed his suit. Long day? She didn't need to ask. The exhaustion was written all over him. You just got off work? Ethan looked down at himself and chuckled. That obvious? A little. He rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah. Long day. Zariah tilted her head slightly. Tough job? Finance. She nodded slowly. That explains the serious face. Ethan almost smiled. Serious face? She pointed playfully. That one. He laughed again. And again. Something shifted. It was subtle, but undeniable. This woman had somehow gotten him to laugh twice in under 5 minutes. That alone felt strange. Nearby, the older bookstore owner watched from behind the counter with a knowing smile. Some people called it wisdom. Others called it intuition. He simply called it paying attention. And from where he stood, something interesting was unfolding. Zariah adjusted the books in her hand. So what brings a finance guy to a bookstore on a rainy Monday? Ethan thought about lying. But for some reason, honesty felt easier with her. I needed somewhere quiet. That answer surprised even him. Zariah studied him. There was something in his voice. Something heavy. Not obvious. But there. She knew that kind of exhaustion. Not physical. Emotional. She softened. Rough season? Ethan blinked. Most people asked about rough days. She asked about rough seasons. There was a difference. And somehow, she noticed it. He exhaled slowly. You ever feel like life is moving, but you're not? The words surprised him. Why did he say that? He never talked like this with strangers. Zariah held his gaze. Yes. One word, but full of understanding. No fake positivity. No overreaction. Just honesty. That hit him harder than expected. Zariah leaned lightly against the shelf. I think a lot of people feel stuck. She looked toward the rain-covered window. Some just hide it better. Ethan stared at her. Something about her felt real, unfiltered, and he found himself wanting to know more. A dangerous feeling. Zariah noticed his silence. "Sorry," she said softly. "I talk too much sometimes." Ethan shook his head. "No." He paused. "You don't." A brief silence settled between them. Comfortable, strange, unfamiliar. Zariah smiled. "So?" She shifted slightly. "What do you do when life feels stuck?" Ethan gave a dry laugh. "Work." She smiled knowingly. "That bad?" He shrugged. "It keeps me busy." Zariah nodded slowly. Busy. She knew that word. People used it as a shield. Busy meant, don't ask deeper questions. Don't look too closely. Don't notice what I'm avoiding. She had used that word before too. Sometimes being busy, she said gently, just delays dealing with what's underneath. Ethan felt those words land. Direct hit. He looked at her carefully. "You always read people this well?" She laughed. "Occupational hazard." He smiled. Or maybe she simply understood pain. The bookstore owner approached. "We're closing in 10 minutes. Both turned. Zariah laughed softly. "Wow." Ethan checked his watch. He had been there almost 40 minutes. 40 minutes? That felt impossible. When was the last time conversation made him lose track of time? He couldn't remember. Zariah adjusted her coat. "I should go." Something in Ethan resisted that. Unexpectedly, he hesitated, then spoke. "Can I ask you something?" Zariah looked at him. "Sure." Ethan rarely did impulsive things. He thought everything through. Measured risk. Calculated outcomes. But something pushed him. "Would you maybe want coffee sometime?" There it was. Simple. Direct. Zariah blinked. For a second, neither spoke. Not because she wasn't interested. Because she was careful now. Very careful. Ethan noticed the hesitation. And immediately understood. This wasn't a woman who moved carelessly. She had boundaries. Experience. Wounds. He respected that instantly. Zariah studied him. He seemed sincere. Calm. Grounded. No games. Still. She had learned attraction alone meant nothing. Character mattered. Intentions mattered. Consistency mattered. She gave a small smile. "Maybe." Ethan raised an eyebrow. She smiled wider. "That's not a no." He smiled. "That's not a yes either." She laughed. "True." She reached into her bag and pulled out a pen. Then took one of his receipts from the floor. She wrote something, folded it, and handed it to him. Ethan opened it. A phone number. And beneath it, 3 words. "Don't waste it." He looked up. Zariah was smiling. But there was meaning behind those words. Real meaning. She wasn't offering easy access. She was offering opportunity. There was a difference. Ethan folded the paper carefully. "I won't." Their eyes held for a moment. Something quiet passed between them. Not love. Not certainty. Just possibility. Sometimes that's where everything begins. At the door, Zariah turned. "One more thing." Ethan looked up. She smiled. "Try not to work too much, finance guy." Then, she walked out into the rain. Ethan stood frozen, watching, thinking, feeling something unfamiliar, hope, and for the first time in years, that scared him. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, I want to hear from you. Do you believe destiny can bring 2 people together at the right time? Comment below. I believe in destiny. And if you love powerful stories about love, healing, and second chances, make sure you subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson and turn on notifications. 3 days. That was how long Ethan stared at Zariah's number before doing anything. 3 days of opening his phone. 3 days of overthinking. 3 days of almost texting. Then stopping. The folded receipt sat on his kitchen counter like a quiet challenge. Don't waste it. 3 simple words. But somehow, they carried weight. Not playful weight. Intentional weight. Ethan understood exactly what she meant. She wasn't interested in meaningless conversation. She wasn't offering casual access. She valued intention. And that made him hesitate. Not because he wasn't interested. Because he was. More than he wanted to admit. That alone made him uncomfortable. At 36, Ethan prided himself on control. Control over his emotions. Control over his decisions. Control over what people were allowed to see. But ever since meeting Zariah, something felt different. She unsettled him. Not in a bad way. In a dangerous way. She made him feel present. And presence required vulnerability. That terrified him. Thursday evening, Marcus sat across from Ethan at a sports bar. "You're distracted." Ethan barely looked up from his drink. I'm not. Marcus smirked. You're doing that thing again. What thing? The silent, overthinking thing. Ethan sighed. Marcus leaned forward. What is it? Ethan hesitated. Then finally, I met someone. Marcus froze, then grinned. Well, that's new. Ethan shot him a look. It's nothing. Marcus laughed. If it was nothing, you wouldn't look like that. Like what? Like someone trying very hard not to care. Ethan looked away. Annoying. Marcus always saw too much. So? Marcus asked. What's she like? Ethan thought for a moment. How could he explain Zariah? Warm, sharp, grounded, honest, different. She's real. Marcus blinked. That's your description? Ethan shrugged. Marcus smiled. That's the most interested I've seen you in years. Ethan rubbed his jaw. She gave me her number. Marcus nearly choked on his drink. And? I haven't texted. Marcus stared. For how long? Ethan said nothing. Marcus narrowed his eyes. How long? 3 days. Marcus burst out laughing. Ethan! Ethan frowned. What? Marcus shook his head. She gave you her number 3 days ago and you haven't texted? Ethan defended himself. I've been busy. Marcus gave him a flat look. No. He pointed. You're scared. That word again. Ethan hated it. I'm not scared. Marcus leaned back. Then text her. Silence. Marcus softened. Look, man, not every woman is Claire. That landed. Hard. Ethan's jaw tightened. Marcus continued carefully. I know what she did messed you up. A pause. But, if you keep punishing new people for old pain. He shook his head. You'll stay stuck. Ethan said nothing. Because deep down, he knew Marcus was right. Across the city, Zariah sat on her couch grading papers. Her apartment was quiet, except for soft jazz playing in the background. She circled a sentence in red ink, then sighed. Her phone sat beside her. Silent. She hated herself for noticing. 3 days. No text. No call. Nothing. Nia noticed immediately. You're checking your phone again. Zariah rolled her eyes. I am not. Nia smirked. You are. Zariah sighed. Okay, maybe. Nia grinned. The bookstore guy? Zariah tried to focus on papers. No. Nia laughed. That means yes. Zariah dropped the pen. Why am I even thinking about this? Nia shrugged. Because you liked him. Zariah frowned. I barely know him. Did you feel something? Zariah hesitated. That was the problem. She did. Not fireworks, not fantasy. Something quieter, something deeper. Comfort, ease. She felt oddly calm around him. That was rare, very rare. He felt different, Zariah admitted. Nia smiled knowingly. Good different? Zariah nodded slowly. Yes. Nia leaned forward. So what's the problem? Zariah looked down. Pain moved quietly across her face. The last time someone felt different. She stopped. Nia's expression softened. She understood. Malik. Promises. Consistency. Comfort. Until everything changed. Zariah exhaled. I'm tired of false starts. Nia nodded gently. That makes sense. She paused. But don't confuse caution with fear. Those words lingered, because maybe that was exactly what Zariah was doing. That night, Ethan sat alone in his condo. Receipt in hand. Phone in the other. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then, finally, he typed. Hey Zariah, this is Ethan, the bookstore collision guy. Pause. Delete. Too awkward. Try again. Hey Zariah, it's Ethan. Hope your week's going well. Pause. Delete. Too boring. He sighed. Ridiculous. Why was this so hard? Because it mattered. That was why. Finally he typed. Hey Zariah, Ethan here. I took your advice. I'm working less tonight. Thought I should use the free time wisely. He stared at the message. Simple. Honest. Light. His heart pounded harder than it should. Then, he hit send, and immediately regretted everything. Ethan dropped his phone onto the couch like it had burned him. His heart was beating far too fast for a simple text. Ridiculous. He was a grown man. 36 years old. Successful. Rational. And somehow, one text message had him feeling like a nervous teenager. He rubbed his face. This is insane. His phone buzzed. Instantly. Ethan froze. No way. He stared at the screen. Zariah. His pulse jumped. She replied. Already. He opened the message and smiled before he could stop himself. Wow. The finance guy finally texted. I was starting to think you lost the receipt. Ethan laughed. A real laugh. Warm. Unexpected. Before he could overthink, another message came. I'm glad you listened, though. Working less is progress. Something in his chest softened. She remembered. That small detail mattered. He typed back. 3 days is still acceptable, right? Her reply came quickly, borderline suspicious. Ethan smiled. I was trying not to waste it. There was a brief pause, long enough for his thoughts to spiral. Then, good answer. That simple message eased something in him. He didn't realize how tense he'd been until that moment. Conversation flowed naturally after that. Easy. Unexpectedly easy. They talked about small things first. Work, books, favorite coffee spots, Chicago weather. Then somehow, without forcing it, the conversation deepened. Zariah, so what made you walk into that bookstore that day? Ethan stared at the screen. His first instinct was the usual safe answer. Needed a book. But with her, he felt drawn toward honesty. Ethan, I needed quiet. My head felt crowded. Pause. Then, her reply came. Zariah, crowded with work? Or life? Ethan stared. Again. She did that. She somehow saw past surface-level words. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then he typed. Both. Mostly life. A few seconds passed. Then, I understand that more than you know. No overreaction. No pressure. Just understanding. And, strangely, that felt better than advice. Across the city, Zariah sat curled on her couch, phone in hand. She smiled at the screen. This felt nice, comfortable, unexpected. She had expected either awkward conversation or shallow small talk. Instead, Ethan felt intentional, present, careful with words. She liked that. He didn't oversell himself, didn't try too hard, didn't perform. He felt genuine. Still, she reminded herself to stay grounded. Connection didn't equal consistency. Potential didn't equal character. She had learned that lesson already. But even with that caution, she found herself smiling more. That alone said something. Ethan's phone buzzed again. Zariah, can I ask you something? He replied immediately. Sure. Pause. Then her message came. Why do I feel like you carry a lot but rarely talk about it? Ethan stared. His chest tightened slightly. Direct, but not invasive. Just observant. He leaned back. No one asked him questions like this. Not really. Most people accepted the version of Ethan he gave them. Controlled. Composed. Fine. Zariah didn't seem interested in surface-level versions. That was both refreshing and unsettling. He thought carefully, then typed, because talking about things doesn't always fix them. He sent it. Waited. Her reply came after a minute. Maybe not. Another message. But carrying everything alone doesn't fix them either. Ethan read that twice. Then, 3 times. Silence filled his condo, because those words touched something deeper than he wanted to admit. He set the phone down. Stared ahead. Why did that hit so hard? Because it was true. Painfully true. Zariah waited. No response. 5 minutes. 7. 10. She frowned slightly. Did she say too much? Maybe she pushed too far. Then her phone buzzed. Ethan. You ask difficult questions. She smiled. She replied. Occupational hazard. Remember? His response came faster this time. And what if I'm not good at answering difficult questions? Zariah softened. Then typed slowly. Then maybe you start with easy honesty. Pause. Then, you don't have to tell me everything. Just something real. Ethan stared at the screen. Something real. Such simple words. Yet, they felt massive. His mind raced. He could retreat. Change the subject. Stay safe. That's what old Ethan would do. Instead, he typed, stopped, deleted, tried again. Finally. Something real? Pause. Then, I got very good at making people think I'm okay. Send. His heart pounded. He immediately felt exposed. Too much. Too honest. Too vulnerable. Then Zariah replied, thank you for being honest. That was it. No pity. No dramatic response. Just gratitude. Respect. That surprised him. More messages followed. Here's something real from me. Ethan waited. Then, her message came. I've become very careful about who gets access to me. Another message. Not because I don't care. Because I care deeply. Ethan felt something shift. There it was. Her truth. A small piece of it. And somehow, it felt like trust. Not full trust. But the beginning of it. 2 guarded people. Slowly lowering armor. 1 honest sentence at a time. An hour passed. Then 2. Neither noticed. Eventually, Zariah glanced at the time. 11:47 p.m. She smiled. She needed sleep. But something inside her felt lighter. Before logging off, she sent one final message. I should sleep. My students need a functioning teacher tomorrow. Ethan smiled. That sounds important, she replied. Very. Pause. Then, good night, Ethan. His chest warmed unexpectedly. Good night. Such a simple phrase. Yet, it felt intimate. Gentle. Soft. He typed back. Good night, Zariah. He stared at the screen after she went offline. Quiet filled the room. But tonight, the silence felt different. Less heavy. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt something unfamiliar. Not certainty. Not love. Just possibility. And possibility had a way of changing everything. Friday arrived with clear skies and cold wind. Ethan checked his phone more times than he cared to admit. Their texting over the last 2 days had been surprisingly consistent. Not excessive. Not overwhelming. Just steady. Good morning texts. Small conversations during lunch. A few thoughtful exchanges at night. Nothing dramatic. Yet somehow, it had become the part of his day he looked forward to most. That realization unsettled him. He didn't like depending on routines involving people. People changed. People left. People disappointed. He knew that too well. Still, when Zariah texted that morning, coffee tomorrow? 11 a.m.? His answer came faster than usual. Yes. Simple. Immediate. Honest. Now Saturday morning had arrived, and Ethan was standing outside a small coffee shop downtown feeling strangely nervous. He adjusted his coat. Checked his watch. 11:02. Then he saw her, walking toward him, and for a moment, everything around him slowed. Zariah wore a cream sweater, dark jeans and simple gold earrings. Her curls framed her face naturally. No excessive effort, no need to impress. Yet, she looked effortlessly beautiful. Ethan's chest tightened slightly. She smiled when she saw him. Warm, real, and somehow even better than he remembered. Hi. That one word carried something different now. Familiarity. Ethan smiled. Hi. Zariah stopped in front of him. You're early. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You noticed? She smiled. I got here 2 minutes ago. He laughed softly. You were watching? Maybe. That made him smile. And, just like that, some of the nervous tension eased. Inside, the coffee shop buzzed with soft conversation and the smell of fresh espresso. They found a corner table near the window. For a moment, both adjusted into the strange shift. Text chemistry was one thing. In-person chemistry was another. Then Zariah broke the silence. So, she tilted her head. You always this quiet? Ethan smiled slightly. Only around observant people. She laughed. Fair. He noticed something. Conversation with her never felt forced. She had a way of making silence feel comfortable. That was rare. Very rare. Their drinks arrived. Zariah wrapped both hands around her cup. So, tell me something. Ethan looked up. Something? She smiled. Something people assume about you that isn't true. Interesting question. Ethan leaned back. They assume because I'm calm, I always know what I'm doing. Zariah studied him. And? He gave a small laugh. Half the time I'm figuring things out as I go. Zariah smiled. Good. You're human. He chuckled. Your turn. She took a sip. People think because I'm warm, I'm easy to know. Ethan listened. She continued. But being kind and being open aren't the same thing. That landed, because he understood exactly what she meant. A person could appear available while keeping the deepest parts hidden. Ethan held her gaze. That's true. A brief silence settled. Not awkward. Meaningful. As conversation deepened, Ethan noticed more about her. Zariah listened carefully. Really listened. Not just waiting to speak. Present. Intentional. That drew him in. Dangerously. He found himself saying things he usually kept buried. Not everything. But more than usual. They talked about family. Childhood. Dreams that changed over time. The conversation eventually shifted. Zariah stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. Can I ask something slightly personal? Ethan smiled faintly. You ask a lot of personal questions. She grinned. Yes or no? He exhaled. Yes. Her expression softened. When was the last time you were really happy? That question hit harder than expected. Ethan froze. Happy? Not comfortable. Not successful. Not stable. Happy. His mind searched. Longer than he expected. Too long. That alone said everything. Zariah noticed. And quietly regretted asking. Then Ethan spoke. Honestly? She nodded. I don't know. The honesty in his voice made something ache inside her, because she knew that kind of emotional exhaustion, that feeling of functioning without fully living. She asked gently, "When did life start feeling heavy?" Ethan looked out the window. His jaw tightened, then relaxed. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. After betrayal. One word, but full of history. Zariah said nothing. She let silence hold space. Ethan continued, "I used to believe effort guaranteed something." His eyes remained on the window. That if you loved right, stayed loyal, showed up. He swallowed. Things would work. Pain moved quietly across his face. Then he looked at her. "But life doesn't work like that." Zariah's chest tightened. She saw it clearly now. The guardedness, the control, the emotional distance, not coldness, protection. This man had been hurt deeply, and instead of breaking loudly, he hardened quietly. That kind of pain often went unnoticed. Ethan suddenly looked uncomfortable, like he had said too much. He shifted. "Sorry." Zariah frowned. "For what?" He rubbed his jaw. "That got heavy." She held his gaze. "No." Her voice was gentle but firm. "That got real." Those words settled between them, and something changed. Something small, something meaningful. Trust doesn't arrive all at once. Sometimes it enters quietly, in moments where someone tells the truth, and the other person stays. Ethan's apology lingered between them. Zariah held his gaze. "No," she repeated softly. "That got real." Something in Ethan's expression shifted, slightly, subtly, like a part of him didn't expect that response. Most people rushed to lighten serious moments, changed the subject, made jokes, escaped discomfort. Zariah didn't. She stayed, present, calm. That did something to him, something dangerous, something healing. For the first time in years, Ethan felt seen without feeling pressured. That feeling was rare, and strangely unsettling. Zariah studied him quietly, then gave a small smile. "You know something?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What?" She leaned back slightly. "You hide pain very well." He almost laughed. "That obvious?" She smiled. "To someone paying attention?" "Yes." Ethan shook his head. "Is that your thing, reading people?" Zariah chuckled. "Sometimes." Then her smile softened. "Mostly because I understand what it looks like." That caught his attention. Ethan studied her, really studied her. He noticed it now. The warmth, the intelligence, the easy smile. But beneath all that, there was caution, guardedness, careful emotional distance. He had seen it before, not just in others, in himself. Ethan looked at her. "You do it too." Zariah blinked. "Do what?" "Hide." Silence. The word landed. Direct, clean, true. Zariah's smile faded. Not because she was upset, because he was right. She looked down at her coffee. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she exhaled slowly. "You're observant too." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Sometimes." A quiet pause followed. Then Zariah spoke, carefully. "I used to be very open." Her voice remained calm, but something deeper moved beneath it. "I believed if you loved someone, you should show up fully." She stared into her cup. No games, no guessing. Ethan listened, fully. Zariah continued. "I gave a lot in my last relationship." A pause. "I communicated. I showed up. I fought for us." Her voice remained steady, but sadness quietly threaded through it. "And one day, I realized I was the only one still trying." Ethan's chest tightened. Because that kind of pain had a unique loneliness. She gave a dry laugh. "It's strange." Her eyes lifted to his. "Being ignored by someone who says they love you." Silence, heavy, honest, painfully honest. Ethan said nothing, because words weren't necessary. Understanding was. Zariah continued. "He didn't cheat." She shook her head. "Sometimes, I think betrayal would have been easier to understand." Her voice softened. "But emotional neglect." She swallowed. "That slowly breaks something inside you." Those words hit Ethan deeply, not because he experienced emotional neglect, but because he understood invisible pain. Pain that didn't leave bruises. Pain others couldn't easily see. The kind people often dismissed. Zariah leaned back. A sad smile touched her lips. "So, now I'm careful." Ethan nodded slowly. "That makes sense." She looked at him. "Does it?" "Yes." No hesitation, no judgment, just understanding. Zariah felt something loosen inside her. She didn't realize how much she needed that. Not advice, not fixing, just being understood. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, people moved along busy sidewalks. Cars passed. Wind brushed against the glass. Life continued around them. Yet inside that coffee shop, something quiet and meaningful was happening. Two wounded people were telling the truth. Not all of it. Just enough. Enough to say, this is where I hurt. This is why I'm careful. This is why I hesitate. And, somehow, that honesty felt sacred. Ethan finally spoke. I think pain changes how we love. Zariah looked at him. He continued. Sometimes, it makes people cling tighter. A pause. Sometimes, it makes people build walls. His eyes met hers. And sometimes, he exhaled, it makes people do both. Zariah felt that deeply, because healing wasn't linear. Sometimes she wanted closeness. Other times she wanted distance. Sometimes she wanted connection. Other times she wanted complete emotional safety. She smiled faintly. That's painfully accurate. Ethan smiled too. Their eyes held. Longer this time. Something shifted again. Not dramatically. Quietly. The attraction was there. But now, something deeper was forming. Respect. Understanding. Emotional safety. That mattered more. Much more. Eventually, Zariah checked the time. Oh, wow. Ethan looked at his watch. Nearly 3 hours. 3 hours? Neither of them noticed. That realization surprised both. Zariah laughed softly. We've been here a while. Ethan smiled. I noticed. She grinned. No, you didn't. He chuckled. Fair? Neither moved immediately. Both felt it. That subtle reluctance to end something good. Rare moments had weight. This felt rare. Finally, Zariah stood. I should go. Ethan stood too. They walked outside together. Cold wind greeted them. For a moment, they stood near the sidewalk, neither rushing, neither forcing. Just there. Then Ethan spoke, carefully. I'm glad you came. Zariah smiled warmly. Me too. A small silence. Then Ethan asked, would you want to do this again? Simple, direct, intentional. Zariah studied him. And for the first time in a long time, hope didn't feel terrifying. Still risky. Still uncertain. But not terrifying. She smiled. Yes. One word. But it changed everything. Ethan felt warmth spread quietly through his chest. Real. Unexpected. Zariah stepped back slightly. I should go before I freeze. Ethan laughed. That seems wise. She smiled, then turned. After a few steps, she looked back, and smiled again. That smile stayed with Ethan long after she disappeared into the crowd. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel empty. It felt open, and that scared him, almost as much as it excited him. Over the next 3 weeks, something shifted between Ethan and Zariah. Slowly, naturally, without force. Their connection deepened through consistency. Coffee dates became dinner conversations. Dinner conversations became evening walks. Evening walks turned into long phone calls that stretched late into the night. Nothing felt rushed. That mattered to both of them. Neither wanted fantasy. Neither wanted performance. They wanted something real. And real things took time. What surprised Ethan most was how easy Zariah felt to be around. There was no pressure to impress, no need to pretend, no exhausting emotional games. With her, silence felt peaceful. Conversation felt meaningful, and laughter came easier than he expected. That alone felt dangerous, because comfort creates attachment. Attachment creates vulnerability, and vulnerability meant risk. Ethan knew that too well. Saturday evening found them walking through a quiet downtown park. The city lights glowed around them. Cold air brushed past as their conversation drifted naturally. Zariah smiled. So, let me get this straight. Ethan glanced at her. What? You were a terrible basketball player in high school? Ethan laughed. I was not terrible. She raised an eyebrow. Your words were, and I quote, painfully average. He chuckled. That's not terrible. She grinned. That's close. Ethan shook his head, smiling. Moments like this felt light, easy, good, too good. And that thought unsettled him. Zariah noticed his expression shift. Subtle, but noticeable. He became quieter, more distant. She had learned to notice those shifts. What happened? Ethan looked at her. What? You disappeared. He frowned slightly. I'm right here. Zariah gave him a look. You know that's not what I mean. Silence. Ethan looked ahead. He hated how easily she noticed. She saw too much, too quickly. That made him uncomfortable. I'm fine. There it was again. That phrase. The shield. Zariah slowed her steps. Her expression softened. You always say that. Ethan's jaw tightened. Because she was right, and he hated that. I am. She studied him, then asked quietly, why does closeness make you pull away? The question landed hard, too direct, too accurate. Ethan stopped walking. Cold air surrounded them. He looked at her, guard rising instantly. What makes you think I'm pulling away? Zariah exhaled slowly. Because every time we have a really good moment, her voice remained gentle. You retreat. Silence. Heavy silence. Ethan felt tension rise in his chest. His instinct was immediate. Defend. Withdraw. Protect. He folded his arms slightly. You're overthinking. The moment those words left his mouth, he saw it. The shift in her expression. Small, but painful. Zariah stepped back emotionally. He recognized it instantly. Because he caused it. Zariah inhaled slowly. She hated that phrase. You're overthinking. It felt dismissive. Too familiar. Malik used to say that. Whenever she noticed something. Whenever she expressed concern. Whenever she asked for emotional honesty. You're overthinking. Her chest tightened. Not because Ethan meant harm, but because old wounds had memories. She looked away briefly, then back at him. I'm not trying to fight. Her voice stayed calm. I'm trying to understand you. Ethan said nothing. She continued. You matter to me. That hit him unexpectedly. Hard. Zariah held his gaze. And I'm noticing something. Her voice softened. When things feel good between us. A pause. You get scared. Silence. Ethan hated how true that felt. Because, yes, he was scared. Terrified, actually, not of her, of what she represented. Hope, trust, possibility. Things he no longer trusted. Ethan looked away. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. You make things complicated. Zariah frowned. How? His jaw tightened. Because I didn't plan for this. The honesty surprised both of them. Zariah stayed silent, letting him continue. Ethan exhaled sharply. I wasn't looking for this. His voice carried frustration, not anger. Fear. Connection. He shook his head. This? He looked at her. You. That word hung in the cold air. Raw, honest, unfiltered. Zariah's heart pounded. Because beneath his guardedness, she could finally hear it. Fear. Real fear. Not disinterest. Not indifference. Fear. Not too close. Just enough. And asked softly, what scares you so much, Ethan? His chest tightened. He wanted to answer. He really did. But some doors inside him still felt locked. Years of control. Years of suppression. Years of emotional self-protection. Opening wasn't simple. It felt dangerous. He swallowed hard, then finally said, what if this goes wrong? There it was. The truth. Simple. Painful. Human. Zariah's expression softened completely. Because now she understood. This wasn't about lack of feelings. It was the opposite. He felt too much. And that terrified him. She spoke gently. Ethan. Her voice was calm. There are no guarantees. He looked at her. She continued. You can do everything right and still get hurt. Pain flickered across both their faces. Because they both knew that truth. Intimately, Zariah swallowed. But shutting down doesn't protect you from pain. A pause. It just guarantees distance. Those words landed deeply. Because Ethan knew she was right. Pain was possible either way. The real question was connection worth the risk? That question terrified him. The cold night air felt heavier now. Cars moved in the distance. City lights glowed around them. But for Ethan and Zariah, the world had narrowed to this one moment. This one conversation. This one choice. Run or stay. Ethan stared at the ground. Zariah's words echoed in his mind. Shutting down doesn't protect you from pain. It just guarantees distance. Painfully true. He hated that truth. Because it exposed something he'd spent years avoiding. He wasn't protecting himself. Not really. He was isolating himself. And somewhere along the way, loneliness had started feeling safer than disappointment. Zariah stayed quiet. She didn't push. Didn't demand. Didn't force vulnerability. She simply stayed. Present. That mattered more than Ethan realized. No pressure. No emotional ultimatum. Just space. Safe space. Eventually, Ethan exhaled. Long. Heavy. Then he finally spoke. When Claire cheated. His voice was low. Rough. Zariah stayed still. Listening. Ethan swallowed hard. I blamed myself. Her chest tightened. He continued. I kept replaying everything. His voice carried quiet pain. What I missed. What signs I ignored. What I should have seen. He laughed bitterly. You know what that does to someone? He looked at her. It makes you stop trusting yourself. Those words landed heavily, because that was deeper than heartbreak. Much deeper. Zariah saw it clearly now. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about self-trust. His confidence in love hadn't just broken. His confidence in his own judgment broke too. That changed everything. Ethan rubbed his face. I told myself I'd never let that happen again. His eyes lifted to hers. So I became careful. A pause. Then, no. He corrected himself. Closed. The honesty hung between them. Raw, painful, necessary. Zariah's eyes softened. Because he said it. He finally said it. Not defensive, not guarded, truthful. Ethan continued. And then I met you. His voice lowered. You make me feel things I worked hard to bury. That hit Zariah deeply. Fear, warmth, sadness, all at once. Ethan looked frustrated with himself. You make me hopeful. He shook his head. I hate how much that scares me. Silence. Zariah's eyes watered slightly. Not from sadness, from the weight of honesty. This man wasn't rejecting her. He was terrified of needing something real. There was a difference. A huge difference. She stepped closer. Her voice was gentle. Thank you. Ethan blinked. For what? For telling me the truth. A pause. For trusting me with that. He stared at her. Something softened inside him. Because she wasn't judging him. Wasn't trying to fix him. She was simply receiving his truth. And that felt healing. Zariah exhaled slowly. Then she spoke. Carefully. I need to tell you something too. Ethan listened. When you pull away. Her voice stayed steady. It triggers something in me. He frowned slightly. She continued. It makes me question everything. Pain moved quietly through her voice. It makes me wonder if I've done something wrong. Ethan's chest tightened, because he never wanted to cause that. Zariah held his gaze. My last relationship taught me what emotional distance feels like. She swallowed, and I promised myself I wouldn't ignore it again. Those words carried clarity, boundaries, truth, not accusation, just honesty. Ethan understood now, fully. This wasn't only about his fear. His withdrawal affected her too, in real ways. His silence touched old wounds inside her. That realization mattered, a lot, because healthy connection required awareness, not just intention. He spoke softly. I don't want to hurt you. Zariah nodded. I know. That answer surprised him. She continued. I know your distance isn't cruelty. A pause. But impact still matters. Those words hit deeply, because she was right. Intentions mattered, but so did effects. That truth forced Ethan inward, forced him to see what fear had been costing. Not just for him. For them. Silence settled again. But this silence felt different. Cleaner. Honest. Then Ethan asked quietly, what do we do with this? Zariah smiled faintly. The question felt so human, so real. No dramatic declarations. Just two imperfect people, trying to figure things out. She answered simply, we tell the truth. Ethan listened. She continued. We stop pretending we're not affected. Another pause. We communicate when fear shows up. Her eyes held his. And we stop punishing each other for wounds we didn't create. That landed deeply, very deeply, because that was it. That was the heart of everything. Old pain was real. But healing required responsibility. Ethan felt something shift inside him. Not total healing. Not instant transformation. Just awareness. Important awareness. Maybe love wasn't about finding someone who erased your fears. Maybe it was about finding someone safe enough to face them with. That thought changed something. Slowly, Ethan nodded. I can try. Simple words, but meaningful. Zariah smiled softly. That's enough. No demand for perfection. No unrealistic promises. Just willingness. Progress. That felt healthy. Real. For the first time that night, Ethan smiled. A small one, but genuine. Zariah smiled too. The tension between them softened. Not gone, but transformed. Fear was still there. So was uncertainty. But now honesty stood beside it. And honesty changes things. As they resumed walking, their pace slowed naturally. The city felt quieter somehow. Then Ethan glanced at her. One question. Zariah smiled. What? He raised an eyebrow. Do I still qualify for coffee next week? She laughed. Warm, bright, beautiful. And that sound eased something inside him. Yes. She smiled. You still qualify. Ethan smiled too. For the first time in years, fear and hope existed in the same place. And somehow, he didn't run. For the next 2 weeks, things between Ethan and Zariah felt steady, not perfect, not effortless, but intentional, and that mattered. Both had become more aware of their emotional patterns. Ethan noticed when fear made him withdraw. Zariah noticed when anxiety made her overanalyze, and instead of reacting the old way, they communicated, more honestly, more gently. It wasn't easy, but it was progress. Real progress. Saturday afternoon found them in Zariah's kitchen. Music played softly in the background while sunlight streamed through the windows. Zariah was attempting to cook pasta. Attempting being the key word. Ethan stood nearby trying, and failing, not to laugh. Zariah glared playfully. If you laugh again, you can leave. Ethan smiled. I'm not laughing. She raised an eyebrow. You're literally smiling. That's different. Zariah shook her head. You're annoying. Ethan chuckled. And yet, you invited me here. She tried not to smile. That failed. Completely. Moments like this had become their favorite kind. Simple, ordinary, peaceful, no grand gestures, just presence. And somehow, that felt more intimate than either expected. Then, Zariah's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Her expression changed instantly. The warmth disappeared. Concern replaced it. Ethan noticed immediately. What is it? Zariah stared at the caller ID. Her mother. A bad feeling settled in her chest. She answered quickly. Mom? Silence. Then, her face drained of color. Ethan's chest tightened. What? Zariah listened, frozen. Then whispered. What do you mean? He collapsed. Ethan went still. Her younger brother, Isaiah. Everything changed in seconds. The lightness, the warmth, the peace, gone, replaced by panic, raw and immediate. Zariah grabbed her keys with shaking hands. Ethan stepped forward. What happened? Her voice shook. My brother collapsed at work. Fear surged visibly through her. They're taking him to the hospital. Ethan's expression hardened with concern. Which hospital? Zariah was already moving. Mercy General. Her hands trembled badly. She dropped her keys. Ethan picked them up immediately. Hey! She looked at him, eyes wide, breathing uneven. I need to go. I know. He stepped closer. Grounded. Steady. I'm driving. She blinked. What? You're shaking. He held out the keys. I'm driving. There was no hesitation in his voice. No uncertainty. Just calm certainty. And in that moment, Zariah needed that. Needed someone steady. She nodded, unable to speak. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Zariah sat beside Ethan, gripping her phone tightly. Her breathing stayed uneven. Thoughts spiraled violently. What happened? Was he conscious? Was he okay? Fear consumed everything. Ethan noticed, quietly, carefully. Then he reached over, not dramatically, just gently. His hand covered hers. Warm, steady, present. Zariah froze slightly. Then something inside her cracked. Tears filled her eyes instantly. She turned toward the window, trying to hold herself together. But fear had already broken through. Ethan spoke softly. He's going to be okay. Zariah shook her head. You don't know that. Her voice broke. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. No. His voice remained calm. I don't. A pause. But you're not alone right now. That did it. Tears fell. Quiet at first, then harder. Weeks of composure, years of strength. And now, this fear. It overwhelmed her. Ethan said nothing else. He simply stayed, present. Sometimes words weren't what people needed. Sometimes they just needed someone who stayed. At the hospital, everything blurred. Bright lights, nurses, questions, waiting. The waiting was the worst part. Zariah sat in the emergency waiting area beside her mother. Anxiety consumed every second. Ethan stayed nearby, quiet, steady, unmoving. Her mother eventually looked at him. You're Ethan? He nodded politely. Yes, Mom. She gave him a tired smile. Thank you for bringing her. Ethan shook his head. Of course. Simple words, but sincere. An hour later, the doctor finally appeared. Everyone stood instantly. Zariah's heart pounded violently. The doctor spoke calmly. Your brother is stable. Relief crashed through her so suddenly her knees weakened. Her mother gasped. Zariah covered her mouth. Tears streamed down. The doctor continued. It appears severe exhaustion and untreated stress contributed to his collapse. Stable. He was stable. Alive. Okay. The relief felt overwhelming. Zariah's body finally released what fear had been holding. Her legs gave slightly. Before she fell, Ethan caught her. Steady, secure, present. And in that moment, Zariah stopped holding everything in. She broke, not loudly, not dramatically, but fully. She buried her face against him and cried. And Ethan held her. Zariah didn't realize how tightly she was holding on to Ethan until several minutes later. The waiting room had quieted again. Doctors moved in the background. Machines beeped faintly. Footsteps echoed through sterile hallways. But for a moment, none of that registered. All she felt was relief. Relief so overwhelming it left her weak. And somehow, in the middle of that emotional storm, Ethan had become the one thing grounding her. Steady, calm, safe. That realization unsettled her almost as much as it comforted her. Eventually, Zariah pulled back slightly. Her eyes were red. Her breathing still uneven. Embarrassment quickly surfaced. I'm sorry. Ethan frowned immediately. For what? She wiped her face. This? She gestured awkwardly. Falling apart. Ethan's expression softened. Completely. His voice was quiet. You don't have to apologize for being human. The words hit her deeply. Because they were simple. But genuine. And she believed him. That mattered. Her mother approached. Isaiah is awake. Relief washed over them again. Fresh. Powerful. Zariah immediately stood. I want to see him. Her mother nodded. You can. She hesitated briefly. Then looked at Ethan. Warmly. Thank you. Ethan gave a small nod. Of course. Zariah looked at him too. Their eyes met. So much passed in that one moment. Gratitude. Relief. Something deeper. Then she disappeared down the hallway. Ethan sat back down. Finally alone with his thoughts. And that was dangerous. Because silence made truth louder. Tonight changed something. He felt it. He couldn't deny it. Watching Zariah break down, holding her, seeing her trust him in such a vulnerable moment, it affected him deeply. More deeply than he wanted to admit. Because this wasn't casual anymore. Not even close. She mattered. That truth sat heavily in his chest. Heavy because it felt real. And real things carried risk. Nearly an hour later, Zariah returned. She looked exhausted, but calmer. Ethan stood immediately. How is he? She exhaled. Tired, embarrassed, alive. Ethan smiled faintly. That sounds promising. A tired laugh escaped her. Then, silence settled. Not awkward, just full. Zariah studied him quietly. Then asked softly, Why did you stay? Ethan blinked. What? She stepped closer. You could have dropped me off and left. Her eyes held his. But you stayed. A pause. Why? The question felt bigger than words. Ethan knew that. She wasn't just asking about tonight. She was asking something deeper. Why are you here? Why are you showing up? What are we becoming? He swallowed, then answered honestly. Because leaving never felt like an option. The moment he said it, something shifted. Zariah felt it. So did Ethan. Because that answer came straight from truth. No filters, no defense. Just truth. Her chest tightened, because she believed him. Completely. And belief was dangerous. Belief created hope. Hope created vulnerability. Still, she couldn't ignore what tonight showed her. When life got hard, Ethan showed up. No hesitation. No excuses. No emotional distance. He stayed. That mattered more than words ever could. Actions always reveal truth. Always. Zariah spoke carefully. Tonight scared me. Ethan nodded. I know. She swallowed. No. Her voice softened. I mean us. That caught him off guard. He went still. She continued. When I broke down. A pause. You were the first person I reached for. Silence. Her voice lowered further. That scared me. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest, because he understood perfectly. Dependence, attachment, need. Those things were terrifying when you'd been hurt before. Zariah exhaled shakily. I'm not used to needing people. Her honesty felt raw. Painfully honest. Ethan looked at her. Neither moved. Then he said quietly, I understand. And he did. Too well. Zariah looked down briefly. Then, back at him. This is becoming real. not a question. A truth. Simple, clear, unavoidable. Ethan felt fear rise. Immediate, instinctive. Because, yes, this was real now. Very real. And real meant stakes. Real meant risk. Real meant someone could hurt you. Or matter enough to. He noticed it instantly. That familiar urge. Retreat. Pull back. Create distance. Protect yourself. The voice was loud. Comfortably familiar. Safe. But another truth stood beside it now. If he ran, he wouldn't be protecting something good. He'd be destroying it. That realization stopped him. Completely. Zariah noticed the war in his expression. Her heart tightened. There it was. Fear. She braced herself. Would he retreat? Would he shut down again? Seconds felt heavy. Then Ethan did something unexpected. He stepped closer. Not away. Closer. His voice was quiet. Honest. I'm scared too. Those 4 words changed everything. Because this time, he didn't hide, didn't retreat, didn't mask. He told the truth. Zariah's eyes softened. Ethan continued. This matters to me. A pause. You matter to me. Emotion tightened his voice. And that scares me. Her breath caught, because she felt the sincerity in every word. Raw, unpolished, real. Ethan exhaled. But I don't want fear making my choices anymore. That landed powerfully, because that was growth. Not absence of fear, but choosing differently despite it. Tears filled Zariah's eyes again. Not from pain, from the weight of honesty. From relief, from being met emotionally instead of abandoned. She gave a small, emotional smile. That might be the most honest thing you've ever said to me. Ethan smiled faintly. Probably. That made her laugh through tears. Soft, warm, beautiful. And Ethan felt something inside him soften completely. For the first time since meeting, the walls between them lowered further. Not gone, but lower. Enough to let something deeper breathe. Trust. Real trust. Slowly built. Carefully earned. Zariah looked at him. Then asked softly, So, what now? Ethan held her gaze. Then answered simply, We keep telling the truth. Her smile deepened. Because that answer felt right. Healthy. Real. No grand promises. No unrealistic declarations. Just honesty. Consistency. Choice. That was enough. For now. And for the first time, both of them allowed themselves to believe something dangerous. Maybe this could become something real. Something worth risking for. Let's pause for a moment. In life, words are easy. But presence is rare. Who do you call when life suddenly falls apart? Tag or mention someone who has always shown up for you. The week after Isaiah's hospital scare felt different. Not dramatically, subtly. But both Ethan and Zariah felt it. Something between them had shifted. The connection was deeper now. More real. More vulnerable. More significant. And, because of that, everything carried more emotional weight. Texts meant more. Silence meant more. Presence meant more. That was the nature of closeness. The deeper the connection, the greater the emotional stakes. At first, things felt good. Really good. Ethan remained consistent. Morning texts. Check-ins during the day. Phone calls at night. Zariah appreciated that more than he knew. Consistency created safety. Safety built trust. And trust slowly softened her guardedness. She noticed herself relaxing around him, letting him in more. That felt beautiful. And terrifying. Because trust always carried risk. Wednesday evening, Zariah sat at home grading papers when her phone buzzed. She smiled automatically. Ethan. But the smile faded slightly when she opened the message. Crazy day. Probably won't talk much tonight. Exhausted. That was all. Short, brief, cold. At least that's how it felt to her. Her chest tightened. Instantly. Rationally, she knew the message wasn't bad. He said he had a busy day. That was normal. Healthy, even. But emotion isn't always rational. Her mind started moving. Fast. Too fast. Did something happen? Is he okay? Did I do something? Is he pulling away? She stared at the message. The old anxiety returned quietly. Familiar. Unwanted. Powerful. Across town, Ethan sat in his office with tension written across his face. The day had been brutal. Meetings, deadlines, pressure. And then, 30 minutes ago, his mother called. Again. The call left him emotionally drained. Her health had been declining for months. Nothing immediately dangerous, but concerning enough. Concerning enough to stir old fear inside him. Fear he rarely acknowledged. His mother raised him mostly alone after his father left emotionally long before leaving physically. She had carried everything. Strong, resilient, steady. Seeing her vulnerable unsettled him deeply. It made him feel helpless. And Ethan hated feeling helpless. Normally, he would have told Zariah. At least, partially. But old habits returned under stress. Retreat. Internalize. Handle it alone. So he did what felt familiar. He withdrew. Quietly. Without realizing what that silence might trigger in her. Zariah typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted. She hated this feeling. Hated how quickly fear distorted perception. Nia noticed instantly. You're doing the thing again. Zariah sighed. What thing? Overthinking. Zariah frowned. I'm not overthinking. Nia raised an eyebrow. Then why are you staring at your phone like it personally offended you? Zariah dropped onto the couch. She handed her the phone. Nia read the message, then looked up. That's it? Zariah frowned. What do you mean, that's it? Nia sat beside her. Z. Her voice softened. This message says he's tired. A pause. Your fear is telling you it means more. Those words landed hard, because deep down, Zariah knew. She knew Nia was right. Still, the feeling remained. Heavy. Nia spoke gently. Question. Zariah looked at her. What has Ethan shown you consistently? Zariah exhaled. That he communicates. And? That he shows up. Nia nodded. So judge him by patterns. A pause. Not one difficult day. That wisdom landed deeply. Patterns over moments. Important. Very important. Later that night, Ethan finally got home. Exhaustion sat heavily in his body. He stared at his phone. 3 missed messages from work. 1 from Marcus. And 1 from Zariah. His chest tightened slightly. He opened hers. I hope you're okay. Get some rest tonight. We can talk tomorrow. That was it. No pressure. No accusations. No emotional demand. Just care. Simple care. Ethan stared at the message longer than expected. Because something about it hit him deeply. She noticed his distance. He knew she did. And, instead of reacting from fear, she chose grace. That mattered a lot. Suddenly, guilt surfaced. Because he recognized the pattern. Again. Stress showed up. Fear surfaced. He withdrew. Old habits. Old defenses. Still alive. Still powerful. Healing really wasn't linear. That truth humbled him. A lot. He called her. Immediately. Zariah blinked when her phone rang. Ethan. Her pulse jumped. She answered quickly. Hey! His voice came low and tired. Hey! Silence lingered briefly. Then Ethan exhaled. I'm sorry. Her heart softened instantly. For what? His voice carried exhaustion. For disappearing a little. The honesty caught her off guard. Because he noticed. He actually noticed. That mattered more than he realized. Ethan rubbed his face. I had a rough day. Zariah listened quietly. Then asked softly. Do you want to talk about it? No pressure. No assumptions. Just invitation. Safe invitation. Ethan closed his eyes. This was the moment. Same crossroads. Retreat. Or, tell the truth. The old version of him knew exactly what to do. Shut down. Protect. Carry it alone. But growth required new choices. And new choices felt uncomfortable. Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable. Just honest. Zariah waited. Patient. Present. No pressure. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed. Phone pressed to his ear. He stared at the floor. His chest felt tight. Because even now, opening up still felt unnatural. Still difficult. Still vulnerable. But something had changed. He no longer wanted silence to make decisions for him. Not with her. Finally, Ethan exhaled. It's my mom. Zariah's expression softened immediately. She stayed quiet, letting him continue. Ethan rubbed his forehead. She called me today. His voice sounded tired. Heavier than usual. A pause. Her health isn't great. He swallowed. It's not critical. Another pause. But it's getting worse. Emotion moved quietly through his voice. Something raw. Something deeply human. Zariah listened with full attention. No interruptions. No rushing. Just presence. Ethan laughed bitterly. Softly. She's always been strong. His voice lowered. I think I built a lot of myself around that. A pause. Seeing her vulnerable. He swallowed. It messes with me. Zariah felt her chest tighten. Because she heard it. Not just worry. Fear. Fear of loss. Fear of helplessness. The kind of fear that makes people feel small. Ethan continued. I don't know how to fix it. There it was. The deeper truth. Not being able to fix things unsettled him deeply. Control had always been his survival strategy. When control disappeared, fear got louder. Zariah spoke gently. You love her a lot. Ethan's jaw tightened, then relaxed. Yeah. Simple, but full of emotion. That one word said everything. Zariah sat quietly for a moment. Then she spoke, carefully. You know something? Ethan waited. You don't always have to be strong. Silence. Those words landed immediately, deeply, painfully, because strength had become part of his identity. The dependable one, the calm one, the stable one, the one who handled things. But what happened when he couldn't? What happened when life gave him things he couldn't solve? Zariah continued softly. Being strong doesn't mean carrying everything alone. Her voice remained gentle. It can also mean letting people support you. Ethan closed his eyes. Her words touched something old, something buried, something deeply guarded. Because, if he was honest, he didn't know how to lean on people. Not really. He knew how to give support. Receiving it felt harder, much harder. After a moment, he spoke quietly. I'm not good at needing people. The honesty in his voice made Zariah's heart ache, because that sentence held years of conditioning, years of emotional isolation, years of self-reliance. She understood it, maybe more than he realized. Her voice softened even more. I know. A pause. I'm learning too. That caught his attention. He opened his eyes. She continued. My instinct when fear shows up is to overanalyze. A small laugh escaped her. Or, assume the worst. Ethan smiled faintly, because that was true. Zariah exhaled. But tonight... She paused. I wanted to react differently. Ethan listened carefully. She continued. I wanted to trust what you've shown me. Those words landed deeply, because trust wasn't abstract. Trust was built through repeated evidence, patterns, consistency, choice, and tonight, she chose trust over fear. That mattered a lot. Ethan felt warmth spread quietly through his chest, because this was what growth looked like. Not perfection, not absence of triggers, better responses, healthier choices. He spoke softly. Thank you. Zariah smiled. For what? For not assuming the worst. A pause. For giving me space. Oh, he swallowed. Without emotionally leaving. That hit her deeply. Because he noticed. He really noticed. Her voice softened. I'm trying. Ethan smiled faintly. So am I. Silence followed. But this silence felt warm, connected, safe, different. After a while, Zariah spoke again. Can I ask something? Ethan smiled slightly. You ask a lot of questions. She laughed softly. Yes or no? He smiled. Yes. Her voice turned gentle. When things feel heavy. A pause. Can you tell me sooner? Ethan listened. She continued. You don't have to tell me everything immediately. Her tone stayed calm. But don't shut me out completely. Those words felt fair, healthy, reasonable, not controlling. Just honest need. Ethan thought about it, then nodded, even though she couldn't see him. I can do that. A pause. Then he corrected himself. No. His voice became clearer. I want to do that. That small shift mattered. Want versus obligation. Choice versus pressure. Zariah noticed and smiled. The conversation slowly softened after that. They talked about lighter things. Isaiah recovering. Her students being chaotic. Marcus being annoying. Simple things. Ordinary things. But beneath it all, something meaningful had happened. A new foundation formed. Not built on perfection. Built on repair. That mattered far more. Eventually, the night grew late. Zariah yawned. Ethan chuckled softly. You sound tired. I am, she smiled. You too. A brief silence followed. Then Ethan spoke quietly. Zariah? Yes? He hesitated, then said something simple, something real. Thank you for staying. Her chest warmed instantly, because she understood what he really meant. Thank you for not running. Thank you for not making fear bigger. Thank you for staying emotionally present. She smiled softly. Always tell me the truth, Ethan. A pause. And I'll meet you there. Those words settled deeply inside him, because maybe that was love in its healthiest form. Not rescuing, not fixing, meeting each other honestly. Before ending the call, Ethan looked out his window. The night felt quieter now. The heaviness wasn't gone. His mother was still struggling. Life was still uncertain. But something had changed. He no longer felt alone inside it. And that changed everything. 2 weeks later, things between Ethan and Zariah felt stronger. Not because life had become easier, because they were learning how to navigate difficulty together. That mattered. Real connection wasn't built in perfect moments. It was built in difficult ones. And lately, they had handled those moments well. They communicated better, recovered faster, trusted deeper. Slowly, something beautiful was forming. Something real. Saturday evening, Ethan and Zariah sat across from each other at a quiet restaurant downtown. Soft music played in the background. The atmosphere felt warm, comfortable. Zariah smiled as Ethan spoke. "You're laughing now?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "At what?" She grinned. "At yourself." He frowned slightly. "I do not." She laughed. "You do." Ethan shook his head, smiling. "Impossible." Zariah leaned forward. "It's progress." He smiled. That word had become meaningful between them. Progress, not perfection, just progress. And somehow, that felt enough. Mid-conversation, Ethan's phone buzzed. He barely glanced at it, then froze. Everything inside him tightened instantly. Zariah noticed the shift. His face changed, completely. The warmth disappeared. Tension replaced it. Fear, shock, discomfort. Her chest tightened slightly. "What happened?" Ethan stared at the screen. Silent. Too silent. Zariah's pulse slowed. A bad feeling surfaced. Then Ethan locked his phone quickly. Too quickly. That didn't help. Not at all. Zariah's mind immediately noticed everything. The expression, the tension, the sudden silence. Something felt off. Very off. She stayed calm. But internally, anxiety stirred. "What is it?" Ethan hesitated. Too long. Then finally, "Nothing." That one word changed everything. Because it felt wrong. Too quick, too guarded, too familiar. Zariah's chest tightened. Again, "Nothing?" She knew enough by now to know that was untrue. Ethan's heart pounded. Because the message had completely blindsided him. One name, one message, and suddenly, old memories flooded back. Claire, his ex-fiancée. The message was simple. "Can we talk? It's important." That was it. Yet it hit like a shockwave. He hadn't heard from her in years. Years. Why now? Why tonight? Why at all? His mind spiraled instantly. Confusion, frustration, anger, and buried pain he thought he'd moved past. Everything surfaced. Fast. Too fast. Across from him, Zariah watched quietly. Her instincts were loud now. Something was definitely wrong. She spoke carefully. "Ethan." He looked up. Her voice stayed calm. "Talk to me." Simple words. Safe words. But Ethan felt trapped. Because he didn't even know what he felt yet. Shock, anger, confusion. Everything collided. His nervous system screamed for one thing. Retreat. Old coping patterns surfaced hard. Danger. Overwhelm. Withdraw. He stood suddenly. "I need air." Zariah blinked. Her heart dropped. He was leaving. Just like that. Without explanation. Fear surged through her. Instantly. Not because of logic. Because of emotional memory. Abandonment rarely announces itself. Sometimes it begins with emotional disappearance. She stood too. "Ethan." He stopped. Back still turned. She swallowed. Her voice softened. "What's happening?" Silence. Heavy silence. Then, Ethan finally turned. His face carried visible conflict. He looked overwhelmed. Actually overwhelmed. That softened something in her. Because this wasn't indifference. This was emotional flooding. She could see it clearly. Still, silence wouldn't help. Ethan rubbed his face. Then spoke. Quietly. "It's Claire." Zariah froze. The words landed instantly. Claire. His ex. The woman who broke him. Her chest tightened hard. 1,000 thoughts flashed. Why is she texting? Why now? What does she want? Fear surfaced fast. Unwanted. Sharp. Painful. Still, Zariah forced herself to stay grounded. Barely. What did she say? Ethan swallowed. "She wants to talk." Silence. The air between them changed completely. Everything felt different now. Tense. Fragile. Uncertain. Zariah's mind raced. No matter how grounded she tried to be, this hurt. Not because Ethan had done anything wrong. Because old wounds got triggered instantly. Fear of being emotionally replaced. Fear of not being enough. Fear of history resurfacing. All of it hit hard. She hated how fast anxiety spoke. Ethan saw it. Saw the shift in her face. and guilt hit immediately. Because now, his pain had triggered hers. Again. He hated that. Zariah inhaled slowly. Then asked the question she wasn't sure she wanted answered. "What are you feeling right now?" Ethan blinked, because honestly, he didn't know. He searched for clarity. Then finally, "I feel angry." A pause. Confused. Another pause. Then, shaken. That honesty mattered. A lot. Because he told the truth. Zariah nodded slowly, trying to steady herself. Then asked carefully, "Do you want to talk to her?" Silence. Long silence. Too long. Ethan's jaw tightened. Because he genuinely didn't know. And not knowing scared both of them. Cold evening air hit them as they stepped outside the restaurant. The city moved around them. Cars passed. People laughed nearby. Life continued. But for Ethan and Zariah, everything felt suspended, tense, fragile, heavy. Claire's message sat like a weight between them. Unspoken, powerful, uncomfortable. Ethan stared ahead, jaw tight, shoulders tense. He hated this, hated how quickly old pain could return. Years of distance, years of silence. And one message had unsettled everything. That angered him. But what unsettled him even more was the effect it had on Zariah. He saw it, the fear in her eyes, the effort it took for her to stay calm. That hurt, because the last thing he wanted was for old history to damage something good. Zariah stood quietly beside him, trying to regulate everything happening inside her. Her thoughts were loud, too loud. She wanted certainty, reassurance, something solid, but fear rarely waits patiently. It whispers quickly. What if this changes everything? What if he still has unresolved feelings? What if history pulls him back? She hated those thoughts, because she knew fear distorted reality. Still, they felt real, painfully real. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I don't want this." Zariah looked at him. His voice carried frustration, real frustration. "I don't want her message affecting this." A pause. He looked at her. "Us." That word mattered. Us, not me, not you. Us. Despite the tension, something inside Zariah softened, because even now, he was thinking about them. Ethan exhaled sharply, then forced himself into honesty. The kind of honesty growth demanded. When she cheated. His voice lowered. "I never got closure." Zariah stayed still, listening. Ethan continued. "She apologized once." A bitter laugh escaped him, then disappeared. He looked away. "I buried everything after that." Pain moved through his expression. Anger, hurt, unresolved grief. All of it. Zariah understood something important then. This wasn't about rekindled feelings. This was unfinished pain. There was a difference. A huge difference. Still, unfinished pain carried power. And that scared her too. She asked carefully, "If you talk to her..." A pause. "What do you want from that conversation?" Ethan froze. The question hit deep, because he hadn't thought that far. What did he want? Closure? Answers? Nothing? He exhaled slowly, then answered, "I don't want her back." No hesitation, no confusion. That answer came instantly. Firm, clear, certain. Zariah felt immediate relief. Not complete relief, but meaningful relief. Because she believed him. Ethan continued, "But part of me..." He swallowed. "Wants to understand why." Pain threaded through his voice. Why throw everything away? That question carried years of unresolved hurt. Years. Zariah felt compassion rise, because she understood. Sometimes betrayal leaves behind questions that haunt people longer than the pain itself. Why? Why wasn't truth enough? Why did this happen? Those questions can trap people for years. Zariah spoke gently. "Do you believe her answer would heal you?" Silence. That question landed heavily. Because deep down, Ethan wasn't sure. Would answers change anything? Would explanations undo betrayal? Would closure actually come from her? Or from somewhere else? That truth unsettled him. After a long pause, Ethan shook his head. "I don't know." Then he looked at her, completely honest. "But I do know this." His voice softened. "I don't want secrets between us." That hit Zariah deeply, because that was growth. Massive growth. Old Ethan would have hidden this, internalized everything, handled it alone. This Ethan chose honesty, even when it was messy, even when it was uncomfortable. That mattered so much. Zariah's eyes softened. She stepped slightly closer, then spoke with quiet honesty. "This scares me." Ethan nodded. I know. Her voice trembled slightly. Not because I think you'll run back to her. A pause. But because unresolved things can reopen old wounds. Pain moved across her face. And old wounds change people. That truth landed deeply, because both of them knew it firsthand. Pain changes people, sometimes quietly, sometimes permanently. Ethan looked at her carefully, then asked softly, "What do you need from me right now?" The question surprised her, because it showed emotional maturity, not defensiveness, not avoidance, partnership. What do you need? That mattered. Zariah inhaled slowly, then answered truthfully, "I need honesty." Simple, clear. She continued, "If you choose to talk to Claire." Her voice stayed steady. "Tell me." A pause. No hiding. Another pause. No emotional disappearing. Her eyes held his. "I can handle difficult truths." Emotion tightened her voice slightly. "What I can't handle is distance and silence." Those words landed powerfully, because they came straight from her deepest wound, not control, not insecurity, truth. Ethan understood completely. He stepped closer, then said quietly, "You deserve that." A pause. "And I can give you that." No hesitation, no empty promise, just clear intention. That mattered. Silence softened between them. The tension didn't disappear. But something stronger entered. Trust. Not easy trust. Chosen trust. The kind built during hard moments. The kind that says, "I'm scared. This is messy. But I'm choosing honesty anyway." That kind of trust runs deep. Then Ethan did something simple. Something meaningful. He pulled out his phone, opened Claire's message, and handed the phone to Zariah. She blinked, confused. He held her gaze. "No secrets." Those two words hit deeply. Because this wasn't about proving innocence. It was about emotional transparency, radical honesty, partnership. Zariah looked at him. Emotion filled her chest. Not because of the phone, because of what the gesture meant. He was choosing openness, actively. That changed something. She slowly pushed the phone back toward him. Her voice softened. "I don't need to read it." Ethan frowned slightly. She held his gaze. "I need honesty." A small pause. Not surveillance. Those words landed deeply, because they reflected trust too. Healthy trust. Not controlling, not fear-driven. Trust. For the first time that night, Ethan's tension eased slightly. A small breath left him. Then Zariah asked quietly, "What are you going to do?" Ethan looked down at the message, then back at her, and realized the answer wasn't really about Claire. It was about who he wanted to become. The old Ethan avoided hard things. The new Ethan faced them. Honestly, he exhaled, then finally said, "I'm going to choose clarity." And both of them knew. The next choice could change everything. Ethan barely slept that night. Claire's message sat heavily in his mind, not because he wanted her back. He didn't. That truth was clear, painfully clear. What unsettled him wasn't love. It was memory. Old pain had a strange way of resurfacing. Not because it still controlled you, but because unresolved wounds remembered where they were buried. And now, everything he thought was buried had been disturbed. The next morning, Ethan sat alone in his kitchen staring at his coffee. His phone rested on the counter. Claire's message still open. 3 words echoed in his mind. "Can we talk?" He hated how much emotional weight those words carried. Hated how quickly they brought back old questions. Questions he spent years suppressing. Why wasn't honesty enough? Why did she lie? Why did she betray everything they built? Questions without answers. Questions that shaped him. His phone buzzed. Zariah. His chest softened immediately. He opened her message. "Good morning. Whatever you decide today, choose peace, not fear." He stared at those words. Then read them again. Choose peace, not fear. Simple, powerful, and exactly what he needed. Because this decision was bigger than Claire. This was about who he wanted to be. A man controlled by old pain, or a man willing to face it and move forward. An hour later, Ethan replied to Claire. One conversation, public place, noon, short, clear, boundaried. Her reply came quickly. "Thank you." That was all. By noon, Ethan sat inside a quiet cafe downtown. His pulse remained steady, surprisingly steady, not because he felt comfortable, because something had changed. He wasn't here for reconciliation. He wasn't here for answers that would magically heal him. He was here for clarity, for closure, for peace. That mindset grounded him. Then Claire walked in. And for a brief second, time felt strange. She looked older. Not dramatically, just Older, more tired, more human, less idealized. Ethan noticed something important instantly. The woman standing in front of him no longer held emotional power over him. That realization surprised him a lot. Claire approached slowly, her expression nervous, uncertain. "Hi." Ethan gave a small nod. "Hi." No warmth, no anger, just calm. Claire sat down carefully. Silence stretched, awkward, heavy, unavoidable. Finally she spoke. "You look well." Ethan's expression stayed neutral. "I'm doing okay." Claire nodded slowly, then looked down at her hands. Emotion moved across her face. Regret, real regret. Ethan noticed, but stayed grounded. After a long silence, Claire finally spoke. "I know I don't deserve your time." Ethan said nothing. She swallowed. "But I needed to say this." Her voice trembled slightly. "I'm sorry." Silence. Then, tears filled her eyes. "I'm deeply sorry." Ethan watched quietly. No emotional flood, no rage, no collapse, just observation. Claire continued. "What I did to you was cruel." Pain thickened her voice. "You didn't deserve that." Ethan remained still, listening, not absorbing, just listening. That distinction mattered. Claire wiped her eyes. "I hated myself for how I left." Ethan finally spoke, his voice calm. "Then why did you do it?" Direct, clean, no hostility, just truth. The question hung heavily between them. Claire broke eye contact, because this was the question, the one she knew would come, the one she feared most. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. "It wasn't about you." Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. He stayed silent. Claire continued. "I was broken in ways I didn't understand." A pause. "I confused attention with validation." Tears fell. "When things felt hard between us," her voice cracked, "I ran toward what felt easier." Shame filled her expression, instead of choosing honesty. Ethan listened. Carefully, Claire looked up. Pain filled her eyes. "You loved me well." That landed harder than expected, because part of Ethan still carried self-blame, still carried old questions. Was I not enough? Did I miss something? Claire continued. "You weren't the problem." A pause. "I was." Those words hit deeply, because for years, some part of Ethan quietly blamed himself. Not fully, but enough. Enough to damage self-trust. Enough to build walls. Enough to fear connection. Ethan sat very still. Something inside him shifted. Quietly. Not dramatic, but meaningful. Because hearing the truth from her changed something. Not everything, but something. The burden of self-blame loosened, just slightly. Claire cried softly now. "I hurt someone good because I wasn't honest with myself." Her voice shook. "And I hurt you in the worst possible way." Silence. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry." Real remorse filled every word. Ethan looked at her carefully. And for the first time in years, he saw clearly, not the woman who broke him, just a flawed human being. Deeply flawed, deeply imperfect, deeply responsible for painful choices. Human. That changed the emotional landscape completely. Anger softened, not into reconciliation, into clarity, something quieter, something freer. The silence between Ethan and Claire felt different now. Less sharp, less heavy, not because the past had disappeared, but because truth had entered the room. Truth changes things, even painful truth, especially painful truth. Claire wiped her tears, her breathing shaky. Ethan sat quietly, not angry, not numb, just clear. For years he carried this pain like unfinished business, like a wound that never fully closed. He carried betrayal, questions, self-doubt. Worst of all, he carried responsibility for something that was never his to carry. That realization landed with startling clarity. Claire's voice broke the silence. "I don't expect forgiveness." Ethan looked at her. She continued, "I'm not here asking for anything." A pause. "I just needed to tell you the truth." Her honesty felt raw, unpolished, real. Ethan exhaled slowly, then finally spoke. For a long time, his voice stayed calm. "I thought if I had been better, smarter, more observant." He paused. "Maybe I could have prevented what happened." Claire's eyes filled again. Ethan continued, "I questioned everything." Pain moved quietly through his voice. "My judgment, my instincts, my worth." He looked at her. That damage lasted longer than the betrayal. Those words hit Claire hard, because she could hear it. Not just heartbreak, Trauma. The kind that changes how a person sees themselves. Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry." Ethan nodded slightly. "I know." And surprisingly, he meant it. He believed her remorse. That mattered. Not because it erased the past, because it brought clarity. Ethan leaned back, then said something that surprised even him. "I hated you for a while." Claire lowered her head. "Understandably," he continued. "Then eventually..." He exhaled. "I stopped hating you." A pause. "But I stayed angry at what happened." His voice softened. "And I stayed angry at myself." There it was. The deepest truth. The real wound. Not just betrayal. Self-blame. Claire looked up through tears. Her voice trembled. "You didn't deserve any of that." Ethan held her gaze. For the first time, he truly believed it. Not intellectually, emotionally, deeply. He believed it. That changed everything. Silence stretched. Then Ethan spoke again. Calm, grounded, certain. "What happened says more about where you were than who I was." The moment he said it, something shifted completely. Something released, deep inside him. A weight he had carried for years. Gone, or at least lighter. Much lighter. Claire cried harder. Not from reconciliation, from truth. Because Ethan had finally reclaimed something important. His self-trust, his worth, his clarity. Ethan sat with that realization. Then something unexpected happened. Compassion surfaced. Not romantic compassion, human compassion. Because he now saw Claire clearly. A flawed human who made painful choices. Not a monster, not a villain. Just someone deeply immature who caused real damage. Seeing that freed him. Because pain often keeps people frozen in distorted roles. Victim, villain, betrayer, broken. Reality is often more human, more complicated. Claire spoke softly. "Are you happy?" The question surprised him. Ethan paused. Then something warm entered his thoughts. Zariah, her laugh, her honesty, her steadiness, her. A small smile touched his lips. Claire noticed instantly, and somehow, she understood. There was someone important. Ethan answered honestly. "I think I'm learning how to be." Claire nodded, tears still falling. A sad smile touched her lips. "I'm glad." A pause. Then she added quietly, "You deserve that." Those words landed softly, without weight, without pain, just truth. The conversation ended not long after. There wasn't much left to say. Some chapters don't need dramatic endings. They just need closure. This felt like that. Simple, quiet, complete. Claire stood slowly, emotion still visible. "Thank you for meeting me." Ethan nodded. She hesitated, then whispered, "I really am sorry." Ethan looked at her, then answered with calm certainty, "I believe you." Tears filled her eyes again. Then she turned and walked away. And this time, Ethan didn't feel broken watching someone leave. He felt free. He sat alone for several minutes. Coffee untouched, silence around him. But inside, peace, real peace. Because pain no longer controlled him. That was freedom, true freedom. His phone buzzed. Zariah, one message. "How are you?" Ethan stared at the screen and smiled. A genuine smile. Then he typed, "Lighter." Pause. Then another message, much lighter. He hit send, then sat back, exhaling deeply. For years, he thought healing meant forgetting, or becoming untouched by pain. Now he understood something deeper. Healing wasn't about erasing what hurt you. It was about refusing to let it define how you love moving forward. That truth changed everything. And Ethan knew one thing with absolute clarity now. He was finally ready to stop living from old wounds. He was ready to choose something better. Someone better. Someone real. And for the first time, that choice didn't scare him. It felt right. By the time Ethan arrived at Zariah's apartment that evening, something inside him had changed. Not dramatically, quietly, but deeply. The conversation with Claire had done what years of avoidance could not. It forced him to confront what he had been carrying. And more importantly, what he no longer wanted to carry. Fear, self-blame, emotional distance. He was tired of all of it. Truly tired. Because for the first time in years he could see clearly. The greatest threat to his future wasn't Claire. It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't even pain. It was fear making decisions for him. That truth hit hard. And once he saw it, he couldn't ignore it anymore. Zariah opened the door. The moment their eyes met, she knew. Something had shifted. His energy felt different. Calmer. Clearer. Lighter, not because everything was perfect, because something heavy had been released. She saw it instantly, and somehow, her body relaxed too. Relief moved quietly through her. He was here, present, open. That mattered. A lot. She stepped aside. "Come in." Ethan entered. The apartment felt familiar now. Warm, comfortable, safe. But tonight, the air carried something deeper. Expectation, truth, change. Zariah studied him carefully. "How did it go?" Ethan exhaled slowly, then answered honestly. "Hard." A pause. "But necessary." She nodded gently. No pressure. Just space. Safe space. The kind she had learned to give him. The kind he had learned to trust. They sat on the couch. Silence settled. But tonight, silence wasn't enough. Both knew that. There were things that needed words. Real words. Ethan finally spoke. She apologized. Zariah listened quietly. He continued. "She took responsibility." A pause. "She told me what happened wasn't about me." Emotion moved quietly across his face. "That mattered more than I expected." Zariah's chest softened, because she understood. Validation from truth matters, especially when self-blame has lived too long. Ethan looked down briefly, then back at her. 4 years. His voice lowered. "I carried part of what happened like it was mine." A pause. "Like maybe if I had done something differently." He shook his head. "I could have prevented it." Pain flickered briefly. Then, something stronger replaced it. Clarity. "But today, I realized something." Zariah waited. Ethan held her gaze. Her choices were hers. Simple words. Powerful truth. Zariah felt emotion rise, because that realization changed everything. Ethan continued. "I finally understand that someone hurting you doesn't automatically mean something is wrong with you." Those words landed deeply, because they weren't just about Claire. They carried universal truth. Truth about pain. Truth about rejection. Truth about betrayal. Pain often lies to people, makes them question their worth, their value, their lovability. Ethan was finally rejecting that lie. Zariah's eyes softened. A faint smile touched her lips. "That's huge, Ethan." He gave a small nod. "Yes." Then he exhaled. "And terrifying." She frowned slightly. "Why?" Ethan's expression turned serious. Because now, he had reached the hardest truth of all. He looked at her, really looked at her, and his voice lowered. "Because if I'm no longer hiding behind old pain." A pause. "Then I have no excuse left." Her pulse quickened. No excuse for what? Ethan's chest tightened. Because this was it. No more half-truths. No more emotional distance. No more careful hiding. Just truth. Raw truth. He swallowed, then finally said it. "No excuse to keep holding back from you." Silence. The words landed heavily, deeply. Zariah's heart pounded, because she felt the weight behind them. Real weight. Real emotion. Ethan continued, his voice steady but vulnerable. "You've been patient with me." A pause. "More patient than I probably deserved." Emotion thickened his voice slightly. "You've seen my fear." Another pause. "My walls." His eyes held hers. "And you stayed." Zariah felt tears gathering. Quietly, because these words mattered, more than he knew. Ethan's voice lowered further. Soft, honest, unfiltered. "You never tried to fix me." Her breath caught. He continued. "You never rushed me." A pause. "You just kept showing up honestly." Emotion tightened his jaw. "And somewhere along the way..." He swallowed. "You became the safest person in my life." The tears in Zariah's eyes spilled. Because that was no small statement. Not from Ethan. Not from a man who guarded himself this fiercely. Silence held them. Heavy, sacred, beautiful. Then Ethan said the words he could no longer hide. Words he had felt for weeks. Words fear had delayed. But truth now demanded. His voice barely above a whisper. "I love you, Zariah." Time seemed to stop. Completely. Zariah froze. Her heart slammed against her chest. Emotion flooded instantly. Powerful, raw, overwhelming. Because she felt it. Every word, every truth, every ounce of sincerity, he meant it. Completely. No fear hiding. No walls speaking. Just him. Fully present. Fully honest. Fully open. Ethan held her gaze. Vulnerable, in a way he had never been before. And for the first time in years, he wasn't hiding. Silence filled the room. But it wasn't empty silence. It was full, heavy with truth, heavy with emotion, heavy with everything that had led to this moment. Ethan sat still, heart pounding, more vulnerable than he had ever felt in his life. Because this wasn't just about saying 3 words. This was about surrendering control, completely. No walls, no shields, no distance, just truth. And truth always carries risk. Zariah stared at him, tears streaming quietly down her face. Not because she was sad, because of the weight of what just happened. She knew exactly what this cost him. How much courage it took. How much fear he had to move through. How much growth stood behind those words. This wasn't casual. This wasn't impulsive. This was earned truth. That made it sacred. For a moment, neither moved, neither spoke. Then Zariah finally exhaled, a shaky breath, and through tears, a small smile formed. Warm, soft, beautiful. Her voice trembled when she spoke. You have no idea. A pause. How long I've waited to hear you say something real without fear interrupting it. Those words landed deeply, because they were true. This moment had been building for a long time. Not through grand gestures, through honesty, consistency, repair, trust. Real love rarely arrives dramatically. It grows quietly, one honest choice at a time. Zariah wiped her tears, then stepped closer, close enough to feel the emotional weight between them. She held his gaze, no hiding, no hesitation. Then she spoke. I love you too. Ethan's breath caught. The words hit him with unexpected force. Warmth rushed through him instantly, not excitement alone. Relief, peace, gratitude. Something deep inside him softened completely. Because for the first time in years, love didn't feel dangerous. It felt safe. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. Slightly, not dramatic. Just enough to reveal emotion. Zariah noticed instantly, and her heart softened even more. She smiled gently. You're emotional. Ethan laughed softly through the emotion. A little. That made her smile wider. A tear slipped down his face. He quickly looked away. Instinct. Old instinct. But Zariah gently reached for his face. Her touch was soft, steady, intentional. She turned his face back toward hers, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to hide that. The words hit something deep. Very deep. Because this was bigger than tears. This was about permission. Permission to feel. Permission to soften. Permission to stop performing strength. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, then exhaled. And for the first time in his adult life, he stopped fighting emotion. Completely. A tear fell, then another. Quiet tears. Honest tears. Not weakness. Release. Years of pressure. Years of control. Years of buried pain. Leaving. Quietly. Naturally. Humanly. Zariah's own tears returned. Because she understood what this moment meant. This wasn't just a man crying. This was a man finally allowing himself to feel fully. Without shame. Without resistance. Healing looked different for everyone. Sometimes healing looked like honesty. Sometimes healing looked like boundaries. And sometimes healing looked like finally letting yourself cry. She wrapped her arms around him. And this time, Ethan didn't resist closeness, didn't tense, didn't retreat. He allowed himself to be held, fully, presently, safely. And in that moment, something profound happened. The man who had spent years believing emotional control kept him safe, finally understood something deeper. Love wasn't asking him to be unbreakable. Real love asked him to be honest. That changed everything. After a while, Ethan pulled back slightly. His voice was quiet, raw. I'm scared sometimes. Zariah smiled through tears. I know. He gave a small laugh. You still want this? Her smile deepened. She held his face gently, then answered with calm certainty. Yes. A pause. Then, but not because I think it'll be easy. Those words made him listen closely. She continued. I want this because it's real. A pause, and real things are worth choosing. Emotion tightened Ethan's chest again, because that was it, exactly it. Love wasn't certainty. It was choice, conscious choice, every day. Zariah's voice softened. We're both still healing. He nodded. She continued. We'll still get triggered sometimes. Another nod. We'll still need hard conversations. A small smile touched her lips. You'll still overthink in silence. Ethan laughed. She smiled wider. And I'll still ask too many questions. That made him smile, warmly, fully. Then her expression softened again. But, as long as we keep telling the truth, Her eyes held his. We'll be okay. Silence settled. Soft, warm, certain. Because deep down, both of them believed that, not in perfect love, in honest love. Healthy love. Love built on truth. Ethan looked at her. Completely open now. Then smiled softly. I think you changed my life. Zariah smiled. No. She shook her head gently. I didn't fix you. A pause. Her voice softened. You did the healing. Those words landed powerfully. Because they were true. She didn't save him. She loved him honestly while he chose growth. That distinction mattered. Deeply. Because healthy love supports healing. It doesn't replace personal responsibility. For the first time, both fully understood what they had built. Not fantasy. Not dependency. Something healthier. Two imperfect people, choosing each other. Not to complete each other, but to walk honestly beside each other. And somehow, that felt even more beautiful. 6 months later, spring had returned to Chicago. The city felt softer somehow. Warmer, lighter, more alive. And in many ways, so did Ethan. Not because life had become easy. Life was still life. His mother still had health challenges. Work remained demanding. Stress still came and went. But something fundamental had changed. He had changed. Not into a perfect man. Into a more honest one. And that made all the difference. Healing, Ethan had learned, wasn't a finish line. It wasn't a moment where fear disappeared forever. Fear still visited sometimes. Old patterns still surfaced under stress. The difference now? He noticed them faster. And chose differently. That was growth. Real growth. Saturday morning sunlight filled Ethan's kitchen. He stood making coffee while checking his phone. A message from Zariah appeared. I'm outside. A smile instantly touched his face. Warm, effortless, natural. That still amazed him. After all this time, she still had that effect. Seconds later, a knock came. Ethan opened the door. Zariah stood there smiling. Beautiful, as always. Warm, as always. And still somehow capable of shifting the entire atmosphere, just by being present. She raised an eyebrow. You gonna let me in? Ethan smiled. Eventually. She laughed. And just like that, home felt warmer. They had built something steady over these months. Not perfect. Steady. That mattered more. They still had hard conversations. Still triggered each other sometimes. Still needed patience. But now, they handled conflict differently. That was everything. 3 months ago, Ethan had shut down after receiving difficult news about his mother. The old version of him would have withdrawn completely. Gone silent. Emotionally disappeared. This time, he called Zariah. Immediately. Not to fix anything. Just to tell the truth. I'm overwhelmed right now. Simple words. Huge progress. And Zariah met him there. Exactly as promised. Without judgment. Without pressure. Just presence. Zariah had grown too. 2 months ago, Ethan took longer than usual to respond after an intense workday. Her anxiety surfaced instantly. Old thoughts returned. Did something change? Did I do something wrong? But instead of spiraling silently, she paused, breathed, and chose something healthier. She called him, not accusing, not fearful, just honest. Hey, my anxiety is talking. I need reassurance. That honesty changed everything. Because Ethan understood immediately. And responded with truth. Not defensiveness. Truth. That was growth too. Massive growth. Love had become less about avoiding triggers, and more about repairing well. That was the real lesson. Healthy love doesn't eliminate fear. It teaches better responses, better communication, better repair. Zariah sat on Ethan's kitchen counter sipping coffee, watching him, smiling. Ethan noticed. What? She smiled. You're different. He raised an eyebrow. How? She tilted her head. Softer. The word lingered. Ethan thought about it, then smiled. Probably true. Zariah's expression warmed. She hopped off the counter and stepped closer. Very close. Then spoke softly. I like this version of you. Ethan smiled. So do I. That answer made her smile wider, because she knew what those words meant. Self-acceptance. Peace. Ethan looked at her. Emotion moved quietly through him. Gratitude. Deep gratitude. Not because she saved him. Because she walked beside him while he learned how to heal honestly. That mattered. More than words could fully express. He reached for her hand, held it gently, then spoke. You know what I've realized? Zariah smiled. What? Ethan held her gaze. For years, I thought strength meant never falling apart. A pause, but real strength. He smiled softly. looks a lot like honesty. Emotion filled Zariah's eyes, because that truth carried weight, hard-earned weight. She squeezed his hand gently, and smiled. Zariah held Ethan's gaze. Emotion filled the space between them, warm, quiet, deep, the kind of emotional intimacy they once feared, and now, the kind they protected, carefully, intentionally, together. Ethan's words lingered. Real strength looks a lot like honesty. Zariah smiled softly. That took you a while to learn. Ethan laughed. A very long while. She grinned. But you learned. A quiet pause followed. Then Ethan's expression softened. Completely. He looked at her with deep clarity. The kind of clarity only truth can bring. Then he spoke. You changed the way I understand love. Zariah's breath caught slightly. Because his voice carried deep sincerity, he continued. For most of my life. A pause. I thought love meant never getting hurt. He shook his head gently. Or finding someone who would somehow guarantee safety. A small laugh escaped him. But that's impossible. Zariah listened quietly. Fully present. Ethan continued. I know now that love doesn't remove risk. His voice softened. It just gives risk meaning. Those words settled deeply. Powerful. True. Human. He held her gaze. Loving someone means choosing vulnerability. A pause. Not because pain is impossible. His hand squeezed hers gently. But because connection becomes worth the risk. Tears filled Zariah's eyes again. Not from sadness. From truth. Pure truth. She stepped closer. Her voice quiet. You know what I learned? Ethan smiled softly. What? Zariah exhaled. I used to think love meant never feeling anxious. A small emotional laugh escaped her. Or never feeling triggered. She shook her head. But that's not real. Her voice softened further. Real love doesn't always feel easy. A pause. It feels honest. Ethan listened deeply. She continued. It feels safe enough for truth. Emotion tightened her voice. Safe enough to say, her eyes held his. I'm scared. A pause. I'm hurting. Another pause. I need you. Tears slipped down her face. Without shame. Those words landed deeply inside Ethan. Because that was it. That was everything. Not perfect love. Safe love. Honest love. Mature love. They stood there in silence. Not empty silence. Sacred silence. The kind built through trust. Through pain. Through repair. Through choosing each other repeatedly. Then Ethan smiled softly. There's something else. Zariah raised an eyebrow. What? He exhaled. Then said something that made her heart stop for a moment. I don't want us to love each other by accident. She blinked. Emotion rising. He continued. I want us to keep choosing this. A pause. Consciously. His voice remained steady. Again and again. Those words hit deeply. Because they reflected maturity. Real maturity. Love wasn't about drifting. It was about intentional choice. Daily choice. Zariah smiled through tears. That sounds like commitment. Ethan smiled. It is. She studied him. Then asked softly, You sure? A small playful smile touched her lips. No fear talking? Ethan laughed softly. Then his expression softened. Completely honest. Fear still talks sometimes. A pause. But it doesn't lead anymore. That answer broke something warm open inside her. Because that was growth. Not fear disappearing. Fear losing control. That was powerful. Very powerful. Zariah stepped forward, then wrapped her arms around him. And Ethan held her close. Steady, present, open, no walls, no distance, just love, real love. Outside, life continued. Cars moved, people rushed, the city breathed. Life remained imperfect, unpredictable, messy, human. Challenges would still come. Hard days would still happen. Misunderstandings would still need repair. Healing would still continue. But now they knew something important. They didn't need perfection. They needed truth. And truth had built something strong, something real. Months ago, Ethan believed emotional control kept him safe. Now he understood something deeper. Safety was never found in emotional distance. Real safety came from honesty, from trust, from emotional courage, from choosing connection over fear. And because of that, the man who once buried every feeling had become someone capable of something stronger than emotional control. Emotional truth. As they stood together, Ethan looked down at Zariah, then smiled, warmly. fully, peacefully, and for the first time in a very long time. He wasn't afraid of what love might cost. He understood what love could build, and that changed everything. Because, in the end, healing didn't mean becoming untouched by pain. It meant becoming honest enough to stop letting pain define your future. And love, real love, was never about fixing broken people. It was about two imperfect people choosing to grow, heal, and love with open eyes. Again, and again, and again. What a powerful journey. This story teaches us that real love isn't about perfection. It's about honesty, healing, patience, and choosing each other every single day. Tell me in the comments, what lesson touched you the most in Ethan and Zariah's story? And if this story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson for more powerful love stories that touch the heart.